Let's go, girl.
Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe.
Yo, let's go. It's Women Talking Football, or WTF for short, of course, not ever to be confused with WFT. My name is Mallory Hartley. I'm the associate producer here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football and Dave Campbell's Texan Live, sitting at our brand new desk
that you're about to break with
at
your
the Dave
fist
Campbell's
of
Texas
fury.
Football headquarters. I feel so weird sitting here because this is one of the only times I've really ever sat/hosted a show at a professional desk. I did it a couple times at NTTV back when I was at the University of North Texas because I did Sports Zone.
Right.
But I did that show during COVID.
So Zoom Zone.
So correct. So we tried to do a couple episodes over Zoom. It didn't work, but that was the only really time that I sat at a professional desk. So this is really cool and really weird, but I like it. I want more of it. Anyways, once again, here sitting at the hostess's spot, sitting across the way from me in the other room. She's the AP to my AP. She is Ashley Pickle. Hey girl, how's it going? You love when I do that.
I was good. Now my ear is blown out.
sorry.
Hi friends. It was funny because I thought about that actually when I was in here setting up. I was like, I don't know professionally if she's ever sat up at a broadcast desk.
No. I feel a little awkward because it's like, it's just an interesting setup because I'm trying to look at the camera that's right in front of me. But then I'm also trying to look at you, which is a little bit, I don't know, it's a little strange, but I do kind of like it. It makes me feel a little professional, even though I'm not at all professional.
Neither is this show, but two things can be true at the same time.
That's very, very correct. So hey friends, super glad you could join us. We're super excited to keep showing off our brand new studio that we finished installing earlier this week. So we kind of wanted to take you through that process and what it kind of looked like setting up this whole studio and kind of take you back 2 years ago when the idea first came to light through Ashley and Tepper. And then in the back half of the show, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to take a deep dive into
special
the record books and take a look at special teams. Because kickers matter too, folks. We love kickers. We love our punters. So we're going to shed some light on them today.
Here's another thing Mallory Hartley is not used to. Wearing a wireless mic as she
I forgot.
The absolute hell out of it on her chest.
Again, this is going to take
to all our
getting
podcast listeners, my humble apologies for my host.
This is going to take
some wrecked your eardrums.
I'm sorry. This is going to take some getting used to. This is so strange for me. It's a really cool feeling, but I'm going to have to not hit my hand across my chest here while I'm wearing this wireless mic. But super glad you guys could join us today. So why don't we take it back 2 years, like I said?
Yeah.
And kind of talk about how this whole idea came into fruition. Basically, you and some guy named Tepper.
Never heard of him.
I don't know who the heck that is. You guys went to a convention in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Actually, you're about to go again to the same
Monday.
Convention. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you guys met with a company who specifically designs beautiful studio sets just like this. And you came back with this crazy idea and said, hey, I think we should do something like this. So kind of take us through that process and what did that even look like? You know, I knew that it kind of seemed like it was going to be probably a process way down the road, which it was, or maybe something that never even crossed your mind before, but kind of take us what that looked like.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because even before that, and obviously longtime viewers of Texas football today will remember when Max and Tepper started the show in 2015, which at the time was our only video effort that we had
Right.
at all. And they started TFT, and it was in a singular room with 2 desks butted up next to each other.
Which is crazy.
We say that there's 2 eras to Dave Campbell's, and that's Tepper pre understanding the use of hair gel and
Yes.
Tepper post understanding the use of hair gel.
Which is so accurate.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about his face, but at least, his hair. I hope he's listening for the first time in his life. Or
not.
maybe that they have somebody up on the TV out there. But, so anyway, that had happened. Then they tore out a wall. They had another kind of rendition of the studio in Carrollton. Then when they moved here, this was the first time that they had a legitimate like studio room. So you see Mallory, I'm going to turn the camera around here. You're on camera again. But the whole desk, there's a whole other interview set on the side that we'll use at some point. We'll just, we'll tease you with that. But this room itself is the same room that our old studio was in. And so when Max and Tepper first got here in 2018, with the help of the better Tepper, Jen Tepper, they had the sound paneling up and the t-shirts on the back. This all predated WTF.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I
No.
remember seeing them stacked up in Chandra's office, and she was like, we need to do something, because I think that was right when you guys installed the Waterboy graphics, the really cool Texas flag kind of behind. Yeah. So they were all kind of just piled up, and I was like, what were those for? And she was like, that actually used to be the background of Texas Football Today. And I was like, oh, no
That's
way.
wild for me to think that you weren't here during t-shirt time. So when
Yeah.
I started, great Jersey Shore reference. It's t-shirt time. Thank you. That's it. That's the pinnacle of WTF is t-shirt
Oh,
time.
it sure is.
So that being said, yeah, I was here for that, and it got to the point where it was like, okay, this has been around for a couple of years. It's probably time to transition, and I realized, we're great partners with Waterboy Graphics. A lot of high schools across the state use Waterboy for like their locker rooms and different stuff all throughout. Any of the graphics that you see up in gyms and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, what if we got some Waterboy graphics up here? I had worked with them when I was at North Texas, so that kind of helped too.
That's
and
right,
So I
yeah.
helped design those graphics. Actually, that was my first real big project at Dave Campbell's, was to kind of try to put new life into the studio. And yeah, I went through the full design process basically all by myself with that one, and came up with the helmets on some, the logos on the other, Dave Campbell's magazines on some. They had someone actually design it, but getting all those assets, coming up with the ideas of what we wanted on there. So I was so proud of like the last studio that we had, the studio that we started WTF in.
Yeah, it looked great. I loved those design graphics.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And then we got to the point where it was like, okay, we went to the National Association of Broadcasters convention. It's unbelievable. Something cool about that, by the way, that's just a side note for anybody who cares, but like over a fourth of the people that go to NAB are like foreigners. Like they're not from the US. That's how
really?
big it is. Yeah.
Wow, that's really
And it's funny
awesome.
that they call it national. It should be like Worldwide Association of Broadcasters.
International, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
But that being said, I was in class because I was the video nerd, and so I took a ton of different classes. Meanwhile, Tepper's job was to go walk the entire convention hall. And take coaching school and multiply it by 75. Like, the convention
Lord.
hall is insane. There's worldwide companies. Their setups are huge because they're showing off cameras. They're showing off big stadium broadcast stuff. They've got lifts and elevation. I mean, it's miraculous.
Was it overwhelming?
Oh,
The
yeah.
amount of
Yeah, because
stuff? Yeah.
especially because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
Like, that's like putting a kid in a candy store. I want all of it. And so I was geeking out the whole time. So it's overwhelming because I haven't felt that amount of joy since I was a kid and walked downstairs on Christmas morning and there was a bike sitting there,
Right.
But anyway, long story short, Tepper ended up finding CDI, Creative Dimensions. Now, if you want to build a studio, they are now, they just got bought out by Pinnacle. All the
Yes.
same people. Great people. Our guy, Jeff Lafferty. If anybody is trying to build a studio who's watching this, which would be odd, but if you are, I have contact information. But yeah, we went through the whole design process. As you know, you were a part of it the past 2 years. Really, I mean, you walk through every step from the desk to the backdrop to what type of backdrop you want. Do you want real brick? Do you want faux brick? Do you want this? Do you want that? Where do you want monitors? How high? How many people on the desk?
Right.
How many light variations? I mean, it's It's a lot, but it was such a blast. And you get nervous too, man. I don't know if you felt that way, but we're sitting there in all these design meetings and it's like, all right, whatever we say here is what's going to go. And to see it all come together and be like, oh my God, it looks amazing. I had no worry on their end. It was more like, did we make the right decision?
That's how that was one of my favorite parts about this whole process, is that we got to sit in all the design meetings and basically pick out what you see on these walls right here. I mean, we got to decide, and it was kind of stressful a little bit. We were like, what's gonna look good with us, the talent being at the desk, what's gonna look good with people that come in, and where do we put the monitors and stuff like that. And it was kind of stressful in a way, but looking at it now, I honestly couldn't feel more confident that we picked the right design for us. And
I feel like for us, it was very, very at the top of our priority list to make this thing feel like Texas. Like we are, that's what we are. We love the state of Texas. We love the brand of football. We love the brand of athletics, from anything from football to water polo to whatever. All of it's Texas, and I think that's what we were really trying to get across in this studio, which is funny because obviously Dave Campbell's Texas football is the core. Like all of these magazines behind us is our core.
Right.
But on the other side of that, with Dave Campbell's Texan Live, our streaming company, we're doing a lot more. We're doing every single sport that the UIL offers, so it's not just football anymore. So it was like, okay, how can how can we get it to not necessarily feel like a football type thing, which obviously that's what we want. We've got the football behind you, we've got Campbell's Texas football on the front of the desk. But that being said, it was like we also wanted it to be a space that we could use for other sports if we wanted to. But the last thing that I'll really say about the studio, and maybe this is me just being me, but my favorite part, we had the idea to put the magazines.
Yes,
from
that was your idea.
Every single year.
Fantastic idea.
Thank you. We had that to put it in here in our control room. And my favorite thing, and y'all can't see this necessarily on the camera, but these are behind me, and I'm looking through a window in a separate room. We have a separate control room now, which is awesome. I'm looking through a window at Mallory in the studio, so we're sitting in two separate rooms, but I feel like the symbolism here in my brain, and the reason that I thought about this is where we came from.
Yes.
Like, and obviously we're never going to stop producing the magazine. Dave's work should be honored in everything that we do. But Dave started all of this on his typewriter in Waco, Texas in 1960.
Right.
And then you look through the glass and it's like, here is where we are now with the 1960 edition right behind you.
Right.
I mean, it's cool, and I hope that Dave would be proud of this.
Absolutely. Well, and in our old office too, they were just kind of stored in the back. When you walk in and you turn the corner to where we're all sitting, you see them, and it's one of those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, that's every magazine that this company has ever produced, and that's a really cool feeling. But we never really got to use it in a broadcast perspective. No. It was never on really any shows that we did. We took pictures in front of it sometimes, but we just never used it. It kind of just sat there, which is fine. But I think your idea of implementing them into an everyday broadcast setting is phenomenal, because like you said, I mean, his work should be implemented into everything that we do.
Absolutely.
And the fact that we can combine the two here, I mean, that was just a great idea, and it looks so good.
Thank you. I was just going to say, and there's the cherry on top, is that it's just a really cool backdrop.
Right. Oh yeah, it's like it's the perfect backdrop.
Yeah.
We couldn't ask for a better backdrop.
No,
than that.
and how cool is it that we can showcase not only so much of like the work that's been done throughout the rankings of this company, but also like the amount of history of Texas football that is behind us. I mean, Texas high school football, Texas college football, the old Southwest Conference, all of these guys that are on the covers and all of that stuff. It's just really cool, and it's one of those that I don't care how many times I see this wall, regardless of where it is in our office. It's just like,
it gives you chills.
That's awesome.
It really does, because
that's just awesome.
Right. You see the Texas football magazine, but then you also see the Texas basketball magazine that Ishmael Johnson started a couple years ago. And then you see the Rising magazine that Greg Powers started. Grev Powers started a couple years ago. And it just shows, like you said, how much we've grown as a company. And it's all just displayed right back there behind us. And I'm super, super excited that you thought of that idea, because I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and the one thing that we always keep saying too is just thank you to all the listeners, the watchers, the viewers, the readers throughout all these years. Had y'all not been purchasing those since 1960, we would not be where we're at right now. So it's just it's been a really cool week of reflection and a really unbelievable week of excitement for the future of this company. So everybody listening is a huge part of that.
And I'll never forget us mounting that very monitor on the wall. You and I and Tepper, sort of. We mounted these TVs ourselves. So we had to crawl back there and make sure they're all plugged in, and you brought your power tool set and drilled some holes, and we
if
just
one person's gonna bring their power tools to this office, it's gonna be me.
You. It's not gonna be Tepper or me. But I'll never forget that. I love that. I do love that we had a hand in helping build.
I wanted to do one
studio. You wanted to do one thing, and it was
to do one thing.
Setting up the monitors as well as the light set that you see.
Yep.
Lighting me up. But anyways, we can't thank everybody enough that was involved in making this come true, from our boss Adam Hochfelder to the McLeans to all of you guys listening. I mean, we can't thank you enough to make this happen, because this is what the ultimate goal was, and now we're just super excited to expand on it and to use it all the time. So thank you so much. We're Women Talking Football. We're here every Thursday, most of the time, at 2 p.m. talking football and whatever around the Lone Star State. And this is episode 64 of Women Talking Football. Before we get into special teams records, I didn't hit my chest, but I wanted to.
I know. I saw the slight. I was like, no.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Before we get into all that madness, let's hear a word from our good friends at VCR Now.
Born and bred in Texas hits a little different, as it should. Texas loved doing business with fellow Texans. VCR Now takes its Texas roots as seriously as its many partnerships with schools and universities around the state. It's also why we're so proud to promote our brand in the pages of the Texas Bible, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and on the airwaves of Texas Football Today. Driven by producing quality broadcast video, state-of-the-art audio, and LED video scoreboards at affordable prices, VCR Now makes sure to listen to your needs in its athletic department before recommending the next best steps. Building great products is our business, and it's our focus on building meaningful, long-term partnerships with our clients that sets us apart. From our 24/7, 365-day help desk, the training lab in our hometown of Red Oak, or our sports marketing business plan that puts money back in the hands of our athletic departments we support, VCR Now is built to last. Reach out to us today at info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW. Again, that's info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW.
Thank you to our friends at VCR Now. All right, folks. We love to talk about setting records and everything else on this show. And it's always fun to look at, who scored the most touchdowns or, who's had the most interceptions, in the history of Texas high school football. But you know what we never talk about and what I never hear about?
Special teams.
Special teams. Whoa, 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 whoa. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about all the way from who's kicked the most field goals, who's kicked the most consecutive PATs in a row, the longest punt returns. We're going to talk about it all right here on Women Talking Football. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off, let's talk about field goal records. And first up on the list, single season field goals. And starting us off at 25 field goals in a single season. You're quite familiar with him. It's Cole Headland of Argyle back in 2011. He actually played at Arkansas first, then transferred to UNT. Caw, of course, and then signed on as a free agent with the Indianapolis Colts. But you knew him personally, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So Cole was at UNT. I believe his senior year was my freshman year, but I had his senior year might have been my sophomore year. I might have got 2 years of Cole being our kicker. I believe that was correct.
Okay, gotcha.
That being said, I also knew Cole from the perspective of his father, John Headland, is the outstanding UNT women's soccer team.
coach.
And he's been the only soccer coach for the entire history of UNT women's soccer, which I believe, now that's probably up to 28 or 29 years, and they've never had a losing season.
Which is insane.
Ever. Their conference championships, I mean, they have been through their time in Conference USA, they were the dominant. I didn't have a good word to put after that. They were the dominant. Period. They were the dominant.
The team to beat, basically.
No,
they always are the team to beat. And whether that's Conference USA or the American, whatever, like, they are the team to beat. And it's crazy to see that, like, obviously his son is going to be an unbelievable kicker as well, right?
you would assume he also played soccer.
Correct. Exactly.
But yeah, no, he was incredibly talented. But dad coach had a little bit to do with that. John Hedlund, a great guy. The whole Hedlund family, great. But yeah, the moment I saw this graphic, I was like, my guy.
Yeah, exactly. And what's crazy about looking at this is that not only does he hold first place, but he also holds second place too at 24. Back in 2013 at Argyle as well.
Makes you wonder what he did in 2012, slacker.
Slacker, man. I know. It's like...
Could have had 1, 2, 3. Come on, Cole.
Exactly. And then if you look over to the right in career field goals, at number 1, it's no shocker. 58 is Cole Hedlund of Argyle, 2011 to 2013. And, like, it's just crazy, like, to see how, like, making that many, in a single season, and it is crazy, right? But then seeing it over a small span of time, 58, that's just a crazy, crazy number to me.
Which makes sense because in 2013, Argyle won state.
Right, exactly. And that actually has a lot to do with a lot of these numbers and all of these record setting.
How many games did you play?
And a lot of these played 15, 16 games, right, in a single season. So that helps a lot too. If you look down there at Garrett Hartley, we are not related.
Cousin Garrett.
That is Cousin Garrett. I'm kidding. That's definitely not, we're not related at all. But he played at South Lake Carroll under Todd Dodge in 2001 to 2003 and kicked 42 field goals in his time there. And then he, I believe, set a record too. He played at OU and then he set a record with the New Orleans Saints. And it's now surpassed, but it was for the most consecutive successful field goals to start a career, and then became the first kicker in the NFL to convert 3 field goals of more than 40 yards in a Super Bowl. So he's a Texas guy, and he's set numerous records in the NFL. Of course, one being surpassed, but that's crazy.
Well, and there's a couple things to break down here. One, also a state championship in 2002 under Todd Dodge.
Correct.
Graduated right before the 2004 one. But regardless, going back to that, think about where we're at in the kicking game now, in field goal kicking game now in the NFL. He was the first player, this is early 2000s obviously, to kick 3 consecutive field goals 40 yards or longer. That, to me, if you're watching the NFL, feels like a pretty average field goal now.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's seriously crazy.
I mean, we've got guys out there going 60+.
I know,
and
right?
now making 360+ in a row would be absurd. And I still think on an average basis, probably making, I don't know, maybe like 45 and out.
That's still impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
That takes a leg. I mean, that takes a lot of strength to do consecutively. And we'll talk about consecutive PATs and field goals here in a second. But I mean, to do that in a career in only 3, maybe 4 seasons is just very impressive.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the number of guys this year that made 3 consecutive field goals over 40 yards.
Yeah, I know, because it's probably not very many. So
I would say it's probably more.
You think it's more?
Well, I don't think like many, but like I would say, man, 3 or 4 guys maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Which
so.
I mean, you got to put it in perspective too. There's 32 teams, so it's not like many.
Right.
There's 32 kickers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're right. All right, let's go ahead and move it right along, and we'll look at point after touchdown records now. Starting off with single game PATs. leading off the pack is Raymond Dodd at 14. He kicked 14 PATs in the Wink versus Sanderson game in 1981.
Jeez. What was the score
I
of
was
that
going to
game?
say, that's a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
I didn't write down the score, but I bet you that 14 though, right? I mean, back in 1981, I mean, gosh, that's got to be, I mean, if you've got 6 points worth of touchdown, right? And you kicked 14 PATs. I mean,
that's 14 touchdowns.
Yeah. That's insane, right?
You're not kicking a PAT on anything else.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know what that math is in my head, but like that's just a crazy number of points too.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot.
98. 98 points.
Yeah.
If you did 7 times 14.
I wonder what the actual score to that game was.
I don't know.
That's insane though. And then moving on to single season PATs. In a single season, Chance Nevarez of Aledo back in 2013 kicked 132 PATs in a single season.
Lord.
That's a lot. I mean, that's just thinking about that number, like I think 14 in a game is a lot, but 132, if you're doing that in a single season, how many is that per game realistically?
Yeah.
If you're taking,
they won state that year, so if you do 132 divided by 16,
which is 132 divided by
8.25,
16,
you're averaging 8
PATs a game.
Over 8 PATs a game?
Yeah, sometimes 9, maybe a little bit less than that. Like that's
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which
that's
again is
absolutely
probably
ridiculous.
why Aledo won the state championship.
Oh, 100%. And then we'll just kind of go right into it. If you look over to the right in consecutive PATs converted, Chance Nevarez also sits at the top of that list with 207. So 207 times he consecutively made that many PATs in a row.
That's Mr. Automatic at that point. Like,
oh yeah,
you have to feel so good about that. And yeah, I dodged.
Right.
That's insane.
Exactly. And then, so if you look down on that same list, Trey McTaggart as well in Munster, they actually won their first ever state title that year too. Mm-hmm. So that also helped a lot with, being that consecutive and playing that many games in a row. That obviously that helps a little bit. And then we'll round it all out here with career PATs. And leading the pack here is Adolfo Cordero from Refugio back in 2011 to 2013. He kicked 308 PATs. Not in a row, just in total. 308, which is, again, that's an insane number. All right, let's go ahead and round this segment out here with special teams records. Now, this is kind of a hodgepodge of different records here because I didn't really know how to name this segment. I kind of just looked at, longest so-and-so, and we'll kind of group them all together. But starting off with the longest field goal, all of these guys kicked 62-yard field goals, but leading the pack, which is the most recent one, is David Leverton in the Midland versus Odessa Permian game back in 1995. And I looked him up because I was curious about kind of his history and where he did, and he kicked for the University of Tennessee for a little bit.
Wow.
I also found out that the kicker for Midland Greenwood back in 2022, his name was Rance Purser. He almost tied that 62-yard field goal record with a 61-yarder in one of their games that season. So very, very close, but no cigar. So all three of those guys have tied for the longest field goal in Texas high school football history at 62. And the longest punt in Texas high school football history, Gary Bolin holds that crown at 97 yards. And he did that in the McCamey versus Stanton game back in 1969. And now the longest field goal return. This one is a little odd because obviously you have a max there, and a lot of guys in the Texas high school football record books have hit that max. So I literally just listed I think there was like 5 or 6 guys that have done that in the history in our history books. But I just listed the guy here that's done it most recently because there's just no point in listing 8 guys that have 109, field goal, the longest field goal return, which is 109. And it was David Gonzalez in the Sherilyn versus La Jolla game back in 2011. And of course, 109 yards there. And the longest punt return was back in 1976. It was David Scott in the Jasper versus Silsby game, and that was 108 yards. And then I did have something that I wanted to say. Maybe it was, I do have something I think about, maybe it was a punt, I don't remember. I did have something.
I do want to say I think we miscalculated on one of the career PATs because I went back in the memory bank and I was like, wait, that was broken this year. It was Armando Chavez out of Mart. He had 352 this year,
way.
which broke the national record.
Oh my gosh, the national record. Okay.
So
we'll have to update that.
Yeah, we need to update that one. But when I was sitting there, sorry, that's what I've been doing. I was sitting there going, wait, that's not right on the career PATs.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, Armando Chavez out of Mart, he hit one this year at Mary Hardin Baylor Stadium, I think, that put him over.
Was that a playoff game?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my gosh, how cool!
But yeah,
we'll have to update
Chavez.
that. So yeah, so I'm using the magazine from obviously last year, the one with Sunny Dykes on it.
That's why it's not in it.
Right,
yep.
exactly. It's almost up to date, except that. So we'll go ahead and update our record books there. Apologies to him, but that's awesome. Good for him. I remember what I was saying. So going back to the longest punt for the Gary Bolin, McCamey versus Stanton back in 1969 with 97 yards. I found this website and I was kind of just digging around and looking at records and stuff. And it's a literal punting website. It's called Long Punts. And it lists the longest punts in all sorts of different divisions, like the NFL, the AFL, CFL, semi-pro, college, and high school. And this is national too. And Gary Bolin ranks 6th nationally for the longest punt ever made in the high school ranks nationally. So there's something you probably didn't know.
There you go.
From my punt website that I found.
Because everybody's got to have a good punt website.
Correct. Punters deserve lots of love too. Anyways, moving right along here, the longest kickoff return. This was kind of the same thing here with the longest field goal return. It's like you hit a max already, and then all of the guys already listed on there were at 109. So I just picked the most recent, which was Andy Reyna of Laredo Martin versus Laredo. Do you know how to say that?
Yeah, Cigarroa.
Yeah, Cigarroa, back in 2004. So a bunch of those guys there hitting that 109 mark, which is very impressive, but I just listed the most recent one.
Yeah,
there.
because if it was 110, they would be standing on the white line.
Correct. And that's
of the end zone.
Correct. Exactly. So
that's
why I was like, I'll just
be
go
a
ahead and
touchback.
Correct. So
that's why 109
like,
is the longest that you can go.
Right, exactly. So I was like, I'll just list the most recent one. I think that makes the most sense. And then, of course, to round it all out, looking at the longest blocked PAT return, which was set by Lorenzo Foreman, of course, it being 109 yards in the Liberty versus Splendor game back in 2004. And I was looking at that list and I was like, Daniel Brooks, that looks super familiar. But I remember he played back at OU, I think, after his season there at Port Lavaca Calhoun. Because I was like, I remember that name somewhere. I remember it was just lodged in the back of my brain. But I remember that name and I looked him up. I was like, I think I've definitely watched him in an OU game before.
See, and you know what's funny? And I'm not taking away anything from like these longest kickoff returns or longest block PAT return, but let's be honest here. There are not actual yardage markers where these people are receiving these balls at.
Correct.
And so it's like, what's the difference between 108 and 109? How's anybody possibly ever going to
really
know?
Exactly. So that's why there's probably a bunch of 109s, 108s in there because you really just don't know.
Really, honestly, I would just be super mad if I did that and someone was like, nope, 108. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like, my
on, man.
heel is right there.
Exactly.
I just ran 109 yards.
Put me in the record books.
You're
Put me at number 1 in the record books, man.
Yeah, if you want to say 107, okay. I was clearly short.
Right.
Don't give them 108.
Exactly.
108 should not exist.
I know.
And like in the
I know.
NFL, you could absolutely do that. In college football, you could absolutely do that. Let's be honest. Unless it's the state championships, you're not going to be able to.
Well, especially like the 6-man schools
Go back
too.
and
Like
tell.
you can't.
Yeah.
Right. There were a couple of records on here that were 6-man records. But again, like you're not going to have the technology to really determine. Like,
Right. Well, and that's another reason that had we put like most like highest point totals by a kicker,
Right.
you have to separate 11-man and 6-man football because 6-man football, the extra point counts for 2.
Exactly.
Like, so you
It's
can't.
different.
Yeah, it's literally
Exactly.
different rules. And
It's
so
actually,
a lot
I think it's bolded in the or it's not, maybe it's not bolded in the magazine, but there's asterisks by it, I think, that indicate if this is a 6-man record or not. So, well, there you go. We wanted to give a little bit of love to our special teams friends.
Wah.
And love to our kickers and punters. And then next week we'll kind of roll on with probably the same kind of thing. We'll look at some more records set. We've got a couple of ideas in mind. We'll definitely be back next Thursday, I'm sure, at 2 p.m. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember to subscribe and download this if you would like to listen to it over again on Apple Music. Not Apple Music, Apple Podcasts.
Ha! That's what you
Spotify.
get for trying to be petty. Go Spotify.
I'm not trying to be petty. I'm never trying to be petty, but I'm gonna come through that window someday and
Do
just, and just
It's the first show and you're already threatening to body slam me through a window.
no, I won't do that. I promise. Anyways, thank you all
This
so
is why
much.
we can't have nice things.
Are you done?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Go Spotify.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all next Thursday on Women Talking Football at 2 p.m.